Welcome back, my composting friends, to another episode of my homemade liquid plant foods, compost mixes and activators. And now today we're on to one of the final ones in the liquid plant foods, is the compost bin runoff. This started its life, not this bin, but my compost runoff, where the manure bin is now. And due to a structural failure, it stopped working. So after digging it all out, I found the fault and we decided to keep the manure bin where it is now and use this galvanised tank that we got off hashtag starting a new allotment that was full of holes. So what we've done, I've lined it with a material similar to the cover, so it's got a silver foil and it's got the insulation. Now that works really well in the winter for the worms, because this is a cold bin, or we try and keep it as a cold bin for the worms. But in the summer it does get rather warm in there, and because then I lift the lid up and the rats find their way in, but you can't have it always. So the liquid, it's sloped from left to right, lined with plastic, and the material finds its way out of the tank. And there's some of the silicone that I found in a skip, sealed it up, and then it goes into the container. The only change I'm going to do with this is to put a wire mesh, well not wire mesh, but a plastic mesh on the top of the bucket so it catches the worms. I'm losing too many worms in the bucket. And as you can see, the worms are on the outside. Please let me out. So I'm going to drain this again because the worms will survive for so long, but I do need to change that. We mustn't kill the worms unnecessarily. They can leave the bin if they want, but if they're going to leave the bin, they need to be able to land on top of some mesh, crawl off and get into the wood chips and do a good job there. So I'll be doing that before the end of the day. Now the material can differ greatly. That's the material I'm getting out in February and March, and this is what I'm getting out during the height of the summer. As always, you only get out what you put in. So all these containers, each holding 10 litres, will need to be poured into a larger tank, let's say, mixed up and then put into the containers, so that I know that I've got a reasonable mix from throughout the year. But there is a massive difference, as you can see. We don't have any water on this site, so we have to collect all our own rainwater, and rainwater's always going to be better than tap water. So this piece of ply has been covered with just a sheet of plastic, and it's surprising how much water is collected from that area. So the cover is actually doing something. Now I cut this little V out in that because I planted my giant marrow in the bin last year. The rat must have found its way in there but couldn't find its way out, so it tore the plastic to pieces. So just got to make sure that there's no rats in here when I shut the lid. But I've had to put that piece of wood across there because there's a thin gap. They will get through the slightest of gaps. So I've got a few repairs to do. There's some of the giant parsnip roots. They need burying. And everything else is rotting down nicely. I'm going to put a pair of gloves on. Looks like the cabbage is growing there, as you can see. So let's see if there's any worm activity. Can't find my gloves, so as you can see, they're doing a cracking job. And there's absolutely loads in here. They'll stay where the food is. But they do look really healthy, and because the lid's down, not sure whether that's a tiger, but worm's a worm. They're doing the job. And what I will do here is scrape this across to this side, take out all the material from there, and then move this across and do the same there. All this material is going to be used in the bottom of the long beans and in my potato mix, in my homemade compost mixes. So my previous thoughts all those years ago was having a compost bin sitting on the ground and all those juices just soaking away into the ground. And normally our compost bin stays in the same place, so we never actually make use of all the nutrients that run out. Some people move the compost bins around, which is absolutely ideal, but I like to collect the juices that would normally flow away. And let's have a little count up and see how much we've collected. There's about 120 litres roughly. So same as the manure, really well worth doing. And mixing one into another will make it go that little bit further, and that now even looks a better colour. So that's one of my jobs before I get to the video where we start mixing the plant foods with all the rest that I make myself here on the allotments. So I better rescue these worms. We don't want them. We'll put them straight back into the compost bin. Not sure, but you can see there how many is in the bucket. Still in the bucket now, but there's still some life in them. There we go. So they will survive for a short wee while. They're all moving about, so luckily enough we caught those in time. But that was the bucket with just a little bit of material in. So let's see if I've got enough material to make a cover for this bucket. So originally this used to just sit on top, and then one of my well, actually this is how it used to sit. Then one of my subscribers said, well, why don't you slip that inside to keep the flies and the gnats out? So that's how it's been, but it hasn't worked because we're losing too many. Now this is one of the body wash puffs out of the shower. Yes, and Mrs. King does know that I've got this. Let's get the scissors. I can't find what I was looking for, so always got bits and bobs on the allotment, so that should do now. I can always cut this down if it's not suitable. So let's get that put back into place. Okay, I have had to cut this down because I don't want it pushing down, else the worms won't get out. So temporary fix, and worms can please themselves whether they want to go through the mesh or escape. That's another little job done. I'll just put the box over the top. So I hope you found that interesting, and you could build something like this yourselves on a smaller scale. But I do find that the liquid plant foods that I use on my allotment do help with the quality, not the quantity that most people want, but by gum, doesn't the food taste better. Happy composting to you all. Till next time, my friends. Ta-ra for now. And last but not least, the manure runoff. Don't forget to check out my playlists on my homemade liquid plant food compost mixes and activators, and I'll be adding to it as I work my way through them. Till next time, ta-ra for now.